So when you think about the Roman army, you probably think of guys like these. Legionaries, citizen troops recruited from around the Mediterranean, and they're the backbone of the Roman military. The heavy infantry, armed to the teeth, with their curved rectangular shields, their iron or bronze helmets, throwing spears, short stabbing swords, and this wonderful flexible armour of overlapping iron plates. Very, very hard to beat in a pitched battle. And yet, they're only part of the frontier story. Most of the actual grunt work of frontier policing and frontier warfare isn't done by the legionaries, it's done by the auxiliaries. Men recruited from all around the edges of the Roman Empire. But the auxiliaries are more than just the grunts doing the frontier work. In their ranks there are specialists with skills that the legionaries don't have, and in particular, the cavalry. If the legions are the backbone, the cavalry is this striking force on the frontier, able to range far and wide, to reach locals far beyond where the normal troops can get to, and a terrifying opponent in battle. The sound and the sight of a Roman cavalry horse bearing down on you was terrifying as the harness jangled and gleamed. And these troops trained and trained and trained so that man and horse were in perfect harmony. Now we see remains of that training in some of those spectacular items we have from the Roman army. These wonderful parade helmets, worn by cavalry troops in exercises, not in battle, for showing off with and for training complicated manoeuvres, wearing these face masks which evoked ancient mythical battles. But who were these auxiliaries? Well, behind these masks were soldiers from all the edges of the empire. So these auxiliaries come from all around the Roman Empire, and we see the names of where they come from on the inscriptions. We see Tungrians and Nervians from Belgium, we see Thracians as here from Bulgaria, but it's more complicated than that. This tombstone of a soldier called Nectuvilius from Mumrals on the Antonine Wall is of a man who served in this Bulgarian unit, but he himself isn't Bulgarian. He is Nationis Brigans, the tribe of the Brigantes. He's from northern England. So these units may come from the far ends of the empire, but they then recruit locally as well. A multicultural army on the frontier, just as the British Army today has Gurkhas as well as Britons in it. This stone lioness from Cramond, just to the west of Edinburgh, shows the mix of people and groups on the frontier really clearly. Now you wander around museums around the Mediterranean, you'll find stone lions and lionesses everywhere, but Cramond is something different, something special. Different because she's a lioness, not a lion, that's really unusual. Different because the prey is human. And the human prey is a barbarian, a reflection of a captured local. Now this whole thing is a tomb monument designed to show you the idea of the power of death, to guard the deceased Roman officer in his tomb, but it's also a victory monument. So here we see one of the locals turned into cat food. So in the museums of the Med, the lions look all tame and naturalistic, but Cramond turns into a monster. At the front end, they exaggerate the claws and the teeth to make her far more terrifying and horrifying to the onlooker. And this isn't just bad art. This is frontier art, the mixture of things happening on the frontier, because this style comes from the auxiliaries serving on the frontier. People who are not Romans in the conventional sense. They're coming from Germany or Gaul or Belgium, places where they believe in man-eating beasts. So the Cramond lioness shows you this mix of people on the frontier really, really effectively. The Roman army certainly thought they were unstoppable. And this distant slab from Bridge Ness at the east end of the Antonine Wall gives you the Roman propaganda view of these things. the proud Roman cavalryman riding down these naked, defeated barbarians. We need to be really careful about believing what the Romans tell us though, and this coin's a really good example. This was struck by the Emperor Caracalla to commemorate his great victories in Caledonia in modern Scotland. And on the coin you can see the goddess Victory standing on a helmet of a captured soldier, erecting a trophy of arms with a poor wee barbarian huddled at the bottom of the trophy. But it wasn't a great victory. The few sources we have tell us the Romans really toiled. They couldn't bring the Caledonians to battle, and eventually Caracalla hightailed it back to Rome, coming to terms with the locals. A phrase that suggests it wasn't exactly emphatic victory and rather more frontier politics, paying off these sometime enemies to keep them quiet. Now, of course, there was bloodshed on the frontier on both sides, but this only tells part of the story, and we can use archaeological evidence to give these guys a voice as well. The peoples, the families of the Iron Age had to work out how to deal with Rome. Do you fight? Do you flee? Do you deal? People did all three. But the rich Roman finds coming off local sites show us that some people chose to deal. Rome was an opportunity as well as a threat. And if you came to terms with the Romans, if you were able to deal with them, you too could have access to fine wine drinking gear like this wonderful bronze vessel. You could drink this wine from glass cups, a material unknown in the Iron Age world. You could show off with flashy Roman brooches or wonderful finger rings, things that would act as status symbols in local society. So Rome was more than just a threat, it was also an opportunity. And as time moved on, the boot shifted to the other foot. As Rome weakened, the locals grew stronger. By the end of the Roman period, the Roman armies were paying bribes or diplomatic gifts to these northern groups to keep them quiet. Quite a shift from the strong, proud soldiers marching in the first century. So when we're thinking about the Roman army, we're thinking about much more than just Romans. It's not just the legionaries from the Mediterranean, but the auxiliaries from all around the edges of the empire, coming together on the frontier with this mixture of different people. And we have to remember the locals as well. These soldiers were not marching into an empty landscape. It was full of people to deal with, to fight, to come to terms with. This was a highly complex, highly fluid situation. That's what makes frontiers such interesting places.